The Substance is a 2024 body horror movie. Co-produced, written, and directed by Coralie Farja. It stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid. A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
Holy fucking shit, guys. You are not ready for this movie. I mean, oh my God. I cannot believe what I just saw. I haven't seen anything like this in theaters probably ever, at least personally, because the last time we saw things that were done like this with body horror was really back in the 80s and 90s, and for a lot of that stuff, I was too young to go to a theater. I've seen all those movies now. I saw a lot of them back in the day on VHS, but not in person in a theater. And what they do with body horror, and be careful what you listen to. I'm gonna do my absolute best to not really spoil anything in this review, but you're gonna see people after they come out of the theater, they won't be able to help themselves. People are gonna start spoiling some of the moments in this because it's some of the most crazy stuff you will ever see done on a big screen. It's absolutely incredible. I usually wait until the end of a movie to talk about if you should go see something in theaters or if it really matters about watching it at home versus in theaters. This is one of those rare cases where I think you need to run to the theater. Go see this tonight. Go see it as soon as you can if you're a big fan of horror. Because even if you don't like this movie, you want to see these scenes. Like I said, if you're a big fan of horror. If you're just a casual fan of horror that watches stuff like Insidious and, you know, the big IP stuff that's in theaters, you're probably not going to get this. You're definitely not going to get the tone of it because the whole thing is very tongue-in-cheek. It's very campy. It is all done in a black, dark, comedic way. And it honestly left the packed theater I was in just stunned. I was the only one laughing and I couldn't help myself. I was literally laughing like a little schoolgirl. I had so much fun with this movie because it's just so over the top. And every time you think that it's hit its peak on how insane it can be, it comes at you again. And every time you think this movie's gonna end, it'll ramp up again and do something else that's just like, what the hell? What am I looking at? It is just, as a diehard horror fan like me, someone who's made this their livelihood and talks about it every single day, and basically am surrounded by friends who talk about horror every day. Like, this was like so much fun. This was like going to Disneyland or something. I had so much fun with it. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say it's the scariest movie. I'm not going to say it's the best movie. I'm not going to go and say any crazy hyperbole like that. But I will say, if you're a fan of 80s horror, if you're a fan of Cronenberg, the really extreme body horror stuff, especially if you enjoy the movie Society and The Shunting, if you know what that means and you love that movie like I do, there is no way that you can miss this movie. You need to see this. Like, honestly, this movie tells society to hold my beer. Like, this is wild. It's beautifully shot, so colorful. The textures are incredible throughout this movie. The way they make all the colors pop, the fabrics of the clothing, everything, the skin textures. It's full of nudity, so that's a little bit of a warning. If for whatever reason you're not down with lots of female nudity in a movie, then you probably want to avoid this because there's a lot of it. Through huge parts of this movie, the characters are basically naked because, without spoiling it, I can't really tell you exactly why or what happens, but they're naked in a lot of this movie for various reasons, not just for things that have to do with the plot, but the industry they're in and things like that. But every character in this is turned up to 11. It starts out kind of tame and it slowly builds into this story and it kind of flushes things out and you start to little by little understand what's going on. The characters does a really good job of setting all that up. But it builds this big world, and this movie's long. It's over 2 hours. It's like 2:20, I believe. But it doesn't ever feel slow because, like I said, it kind of builds this huge vibrant world of all these characters involved, and each one is just so turned up. And it really only focuses on 3 main characters, but they're just, it's incredible like what they do. Like, I was so blown away and impressed with Demi Moore. One, that she did this, because this is a very campy schlock, like 1980s early 90s feeling movie that a lot of really big A-list celebrities like her would never touch, not with a 10-foot pole. Especially, I mean, this is not something that's going to be a huge blockbuster hit. Like, there's going to be people that hate this as much as people that adore it and love it, like me. Like, honestly, I think this is an instant cult classic. Like, it's got that written all over it. But it was impressive, for one, that she did this. But then what she has to do, the things that happen to her in this movie and all the different things that she goes through, and it's wild and really impressive, the performance that she gives in this, especially with what she's asked to do in this. And I was very impressed with Margaret Qualley, but I kind of knew going in what to expect from her, the levels that she'll go and how amazing she is. It's like the rest of the world just hasn't caught on yet on how incredible she is. But last year I saw an indie movie she was in called Sanctuary. And man, if you haven't seen that movie, definitely check it out. It's incredible. It's not really horror, but it's weird and uncomfortable and indie and artsy, but in a very, very cool way. And even though I'm not saying it's a horror movie, it is still a little bit of a thriller. So I think you'll probably dig that. But her performance in that movie, like I said, let me know what to expect from her, because she is just incredible in that movie. Not only is she gorgeous, I mean, just stunning, but her emotional range, the things that she can do, it's really impressive, and it's on full display once again in this movie. But the person I was the most surprised at in this was Dennis Quaid, because he plays the most awful character. He's slimy, he's gross, and once you see this, you'll get kind of the reason he's the way he is, because he embodies this character. Because this movie at its core has a message, and it's really interesting because the way that it delivers it. I found it to be really compelling, because the message here is mostly angled at women, but it also shows men with this struggle in this as well. But when your beauty starts to fade, when your looks start to fade, and that's a huge part of your identity, it's a part of who you are as a person and what you do as a career, and the lengths you'll go to try to get that back or to try to hang on to that. And how if you go down that road and you chip away at it little by little, you know what happens and the ramifications of that. But also it's a bit of kind of a mirror on showing the world the way you make people like that feel by the way you treat them, even without knowing it. And so I think it did a really, really good job. One of the best jobs of a movie I've ever seen at talking about that kind of message. And I really liked, like I said, that they mentioned men and they included men in this struggle as well, because I think you're going to hear a lot of people come away from this, people that don't like this movie, don't get it, didn't get into the vibe of it or whatever, and they'll come away with saying, oh, it's another boo-hoo women's struggles kind of movie, like beating you over the head. And they're totally missing the point that this is not just about women. The main characters in this are women, so you closely follow their struggle, but it includes men here too. Doesn't really matter the sex of the person. It's about people that are treated, you know, one way when you're beautiful, and then when your looks fade, your beauty fades, the way the world just discards you. So, but it goes about such a fun way of delivering that message, and that's what I loved so much about this, because it is so extreme body horror, it is so funny at times, but you gotta have a macabre, twisted sense of humor to enjoy that kind of humor, because I guarantee you, like I said, the crowd that I was part of, they were stunned, shocked. They weren't laughing. They were just kind of sitting there. And when the movie was over, they didn't even know what to say. Like, here I am, Mr., excited, boisterous, just like you see me now. And I was amped. I was trying to talk to everybody. Like, for one, I like to do that after I see a movie, especially when it's an opening night and I'm with the crowd seeing it for the first time. I like to kind of get their vibes and get the feeling of what the general audience of people might think of a movie like this. And it surprised me, but it also wasn't really that surprising at the same time. It surprised me the little response I saw from them, but it also wasn't that surprising because this movie, like I said, is super turned up. It's super extreme. Every single thing, and especially as it goes. Because I'd say halfway through the movie, you see some stuff, and you know this movie goes pretty extreme, but I'm telling you, nothing I can say to you will prepare you for what this movie ultimately does and like how wild it goes and how fun I found that to be. Because through a lot of it, it kind of feels like it's taking itself serious to an extent, but by the end of the movie, I can't imagine anybody coming away with not seeing what they did here and how this movie is not taking itself serious. The message is important, the message is serious, but this movie's having fun, man. It's body horror to the extreme. It's everything you can imagine that is encompassed in that term of body horror. Like I said, it very much reminded me of Society. How Society was serious to an extent, but by the end, if you're not laughing, you just don't get this type of horror. You just don't get this type of sense of humor. But I love this movie. I love so much the fact that it exists, that it's in a theater. Like, that's what is so mind-blowing to me, because we see crazy body horror things that have been made, but very rarely, if ever, especially nowadays, do you see something like this hit a big screen, and especially with A-list cast. I mean, that's impressive. That really surprises me. You just don't see it. And so I love that this exists. I love that it's in theaters. I love that everybody out there, it's a wide release. Most people that have, you know, at least in a fairly major cities, should be able to go out and see this movie. And I highly encourage it. Stay off social media. Don't listen to what your friends and people are saying about this movie. I don't want any of it ruined for you, because there are so many scenes in this that just seeing it for the first time, it's so much fun. So do yourself a favor and get out to a theater as soon as you possibly can, not only to support this movie, but for yourself, selfishly, because I think you'll have a good time with it. If, like I said, you're a hardcore horror fan, and especially the body horror genre of that.
Would you like to stop? Would you like to stop? Would you like to stop? Would you like to stop?
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
But that's going to do it for me today, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching this. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week, I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description, or you can become a channel member by clicking on that join button down there and help support the channel that way. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about Speak No Evil, the 2024 version. And I'll see you guys next time.